We have vertical blinds that we had forgotten we use with a chain, and we use these two strings to pull. As you can see here on the left side, they would go through a wheel. On the right side, the wheel is missing. So basically, this little piece was up inside that little corner where you see gray at the end of the vertical blinds. The inner circle of the piece was connected to the rod. We are going to fix that right now. First, we haphazardly took out the piece that left that rod exposed. Then we realized even though we got the piece out, it was very hard to put in a new piece so that the rod would go into the circle in the middle here of the new piece. So we looked online for a matching piece, and we'll leave that in the description for you to see what we found.
We received in a little package like this, basically what amounts to a replacement for the two wheels, one on this side and one on this side. Maybe if I get this way I can see it better. So one on this side and one on this side for the string. And the plus is that inside this little box here, I'll show you now, you could put in the chain. So a long while ago, the back of our control mechanism broke off, and in there goes chain that pulls the shades closed and open. However, we started getting used to just pulling on the string itself that rolls along these wheels and totally forgot that we had a chain. Luckily, I found that chain. And that chain basically go in the back of this. From one side to the other. But the whole backing of this is gone. So what happens is with the new one, you can see it has this backing. It's not open like this one. So basically there's a little notch here. See that? Hopefully you can see that. And then pull that little notch. I'm going to use a little tool here. It's actually easier than what I'm doing since I'm fiddling around with the camera. There you go. So once it's popped up, just pull it out. And essentially in here, there's like a little wheel that basically the chain goes in there like that. And when this is closed, it holds the chain in, and basically you pull one direction or the other to open or close the shade. So we'll get to that in a minute. When you're putting the chain, you want to make sure that, and the chain you can order, we just happen to have it from before, from the one that broke, from when the device originally broke. So this little notch where the chain gets put together, you want that to be far away, sort of on the opposite side of where you're going to put the chain into the little gear, mainly because that little notch will go inside here and get stuck in the gear. So an additional thing, this backing that came with the product, essentially I'm not going to use because the opening on mine sort of has a backing already. It doesn't have this backing, but it has this part with the two screws at the top. So I'm going to take off these screws and use them to hold this piece in place, as this one was held in place. Actually, I'm not 100% sure that's going to work now that I think about it. I think we're going to have to understand the situation a little bit better. Okay, I've looked at it a little bit more and see these two slots right here, one here and one there. Slot here, I'll use this slot and this slot. Well, what happens is that there are two slots. Let's see if you can see them right here and one on the opposite side. See if we can get the camera in there. Basically here, that can hold that plastic piece. So sorry for the terrible camera angles here. So I can get the piece into this general area, have this fit in the middle. The only thing is I'm going to have to pry this two sides of the wall since I'm not going to take the whole thing down. I'm not going to take the track down. So I'm going to pry these open a bit so that I can get them into slots. Now that we're going over these slots, we can see here that this slot is okay, but this one actually got broken off completely. So it's part of, and actually this little notch here got broken off completely also. So I had to use a bracket to hold this in place. So I'm going to see how I get around that. All right, so let me show you what happened. I took off the whole rod. I wasn't going to be able to just slide it into the spot. So as I was doing that, I thought this was a piece of metal and I pulled it until it cracked. When I heard the crack, I realized it isn't a piece of metal. It's part of this structure, which luckily, that's what this backing that I thought I wasn't going to use originally, that's what this is. So I'm going to have to use this in its place. You can see with that out, this should be able to slip in. The screws facing up, just like that. All right, perfect. All right, so now I should be able to show you the full install process. So number one, I'm going to grab the old and new and show you what I'm doing. So the old one was this one. As you can see, this was in here. This was in here. It's a little tough to get back in there. But basically, instead of trying to do that, I'll just show you outside. This was a piece like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that to the side. And this is the new piece. This new piece is going to slide right in here. It's got two notches right here and right here, where this little notch and this little notch slide into. You gotta make sure so it does it perfectly. You can see at the top, yeah, it slides. So that sits in perfectly. Now what's going to happen is when I tighten these screws, it's going to make sure that it's tight here. So what happens is that the new piece, which you got to watch it because these little gears, they come out. So you got to put the gears back in. Sometimes they fall out. Okay, so this piece, there's two little notches right in here. And there's two little notches right here. Right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to put those in here. This whole piece is going to go in here. But before we do that, we got to make sure that our chain is in this little cog. So where's my chain? It's right here. Like I said before, this notch of the chain is going to be all the way at the bottom end. I'm just going to stretch out my chain so that the top of it then fits right here. See? So you pull one way, pull the other. Alright, so once we got that, I'm going to stick that back into this piece here. Get away from the light. And we're going to have to turn it upside down since we have everything upside down. Make sure these go into the sockets. Alright, so this should be working like that. So there's two little sockets right in there. Where are they? Right there. I'm not sure how well you can see that. But there's a little socket there, a little socket there. And then the other side of it, this here, clips over and holds the whole thing in place. Once you have this thing in place, you then need to take the cable with sort of like a cloth string that then pulls the actual blinds. So we're going to slot those in. One and two. There's enough space. You just spin it a little bit. Until it goes in. So now we have both of them in there. We also have our chain. Move the camera around. Let's see if I can show how this goes. And then we're going to slide this in, just like we did before, into the slots. And then this part, the control arm for the blinds, goes right in the center. So as far as we've done so far, I'm thinking this is going to work fine. So I'm going to go ahead and screw these little screws down here. Hold that piece in place. So I'm going to push up against the back like this to make sure it's in as far. Oh, here's a string that should not be caught there. Okay, now that everything's clear and everything seems to work okay, I'm going to tighten up these screws. So once I do, well, I thought it wasn't going to come out. Apparently not tight enough. It should all hold in place once it's up there, but since we're trying to do this as correctly as possible and want it to last long, let's go ahead and tighten these screws just a little bit more. Of course, you can do the test just like I'm doing. See, they're still sliding out, so it looks like they still haven't hit the metal on the other side. So I'm going to keep going until I feel serious resistance. Nothing yet. Feels like it's threading through the plastic for the first time because it's I think they're in as far as they can go, yet at least for me it's not really holding this in place. So I don't want to take these screws too far in because right now, let me see,
Actually, they do seem to be, no, it's just the plastic having trouble getting out. I'm going to leave it just like that because what's going to happen is the wall is going to go up against the back of this, and there's really nowhere for this to go. So it doesn't matter whether those screws are in tight or not. At least they're in as far as they can go so that they're out of the way of the string. So hopefully that's good. I want to quickly show you how the actual bar for the blinds is held in place by these brackets. You have to pull these out, pull this out to get that bracket off. So there was only three, one there, one here, and one at the very end. So in the process we have a new problem. This came off of the roof. So we're going to have to figure out a way to make sure that holds. So this is what we had behind the bracket and this little plastic. I'm going to find a suitable replacement for it. Hammer it in there and see if it'll hold. Okay, it's all in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull. You can see. There you go. See the track moving down. Now one thing to remember, especially if you're doing this without the actual blinds in, you have to make sure that with the chain, see how the blind holders are turning? They should be perpendicular for this to roll out correctly. If not, it kind of doesn't budge. It becomes a problem. So in this position, if you try to move them, in this position, if you try to move them, it moves very much more difficult to move. So you gotta have them perpendicular like that. Alright, that's it. Now we can go ahead and put the blinds in. And I'll show you what that looks like right after.
This piece is for the other side. In our case, the other side looks like this. Slightly different than this. So we're leaving this one in the way it is.
Once we finished the project of putting the new parts into the control bar, we decided let's go ahead and clean, especially the top since they're kind of high up on the sliding glass doors. So we took the time to go ahead and clean every single one. Surprisingly, everything was came off pretty good with a dry cloth, so there wasn't really even much to do. These are sort of a plastic kind of a vertical blind, so it was easy enough, and it was really mostly just right at the top. So we went ahead and did that before we installed them. With the vertical blinds track installed, all that was left to do is go ahead and take the actual vertical blinds, big strips of plastic basically, and place them into each of the tracks. As I placed each one though, I would go ahead and turn the chain, pull one way, pull the other way, see if everything was turning correctly. As you can see here, it took quite a bit of time, even though this is fast forwarded, to actually install each one and then check if there was any snags. Everything went smoothly. The actual blinds are quite heavy, so putting each one individually and then checking after each one, once you got two of them on there, you wanted to make sure it was turning one way or the other correctly, make sure that there wasn't too much pull on one side or the other. but I'm glad to say everything did go smoothly afterwards, though it's important to check. Just as a reminder, the links are in the descriptions to the actual parts that we got to fix this. This seems to be a common thing. I have actually had several family members who have had the same thing at their homes. So hopefully that helps you. Another thing is to note that once you put in a certain amount of the blinds, it's good to actually pull them out and then check if they turn correctly when you pull them out a certain amount, just like I'm doing here. Uh, and once you do that, you can obviously then, with them stretched out, more easily put in because if not, they're all close together. So when we started this project, we had no idea what we were doing. In fact, it was kind of hard to figure out what part to get online. We didn't even know really what to call that part. Hopefully, some of the things we went through, trials and tribulations, so to speak, um, help you figure out your blinds and how to get a part for it. And also, if you have this same type of blind, which seems to be a very common type, you'll see some of the things that we went through, and hopefully you can avoid some of those pitfalls and get straight to um, finishing uh, the project of getting your blinds working again. I have to say that in the end of the day, while some things were a bit not straightforward and some things we weren't sure exactly what to do, the overall project seemed, in the end of the day, easy enough. It's just a matter of time and a matter of patience and a matter of figuring out what goes to what and how to put everything back together. So in the end of the day, as you can see with the back and forth of the blinds, they're working perfectly, and we hope that they work like this for quite a bit of time. If you have any questions on this project, please let us know in the comments. Good luck on your project. Cheers.